Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are connected from, and welcome to All Dance International's Creatives Workshop. This is an initiative that we bring to you from All Dance International that is part of a series of 20 different workshops that are designed especially to guide you, to give light, and to add to the information that can help us in our creative competitive process. This is all of our workshops will be accompanied by experts, part of our All Dance International staff that are committed and aligned with the All Dance International principles and goals. So this is a very important space that we bring to you. I will be here with you today. My name is Sandra Correa. I'm Technical Director of All Dance International, and I would like to thank All Dance International for allowing me to be here and for creating these spaces, but especially Maria Fernanda Castro, our General Director, who is always looking for new ways and generating new ideas for this industry of dance to be able to grow together, and of course the All Dance International family. So we hope this helps you develop and create and gives you a lot of elements and a lot of different things that will help you in your creative process and that will help the dance industry grow and will this specific industry that is the creative process and of course the teaching industry. Now, when we talk about creativity, we think about a lot of elements. We think about creative thought, divergent thinking, and new things, originality. All this is part of the creative process. But one thing that is very important is the information, the knowledge, where we are going to be taking all the things we need from. Now, imagination is important, of course. Everything about this creative. But one thing that is sure, the knowledge is going to be fuel for that, to ignite that creativity along with the imagination. So here today we bring the information, the knowledge, well, the creativity and the imagination you guys put. And when we bring this together, well, that's where we have all of these creative elements and all of these different choreographies and special things that we're going to see on stage. Now, today we have a very special guest that is going to be with us in this particular modality. That's one of our 45 modalities in our 24 different techniques that we have in All Dance International. Today with us, we have Kritika Thakur, that is part of our All Dance International workshop artists, all of our international judges, and is a very part of our organization. She is very, very well known for these dance techniques. It's part of her culture, and she is here to share all of this information. Loves dance, is aligned with the All Dance International philosophy as well, and it is a great pleasure to have her here with us today. So welcome, Kritika, and thank you very much for accepting this invitation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here, Sandra, and I want to thank All Danced for this initiative because it's a great way to share my culture and to make the dance industry grow. So thank you so much, and I hope I will be able to share everything I know about my culture and the dance styles.
Well, I'm pretty sure you will, so thank you very much. Now, she's going to be sharing with us about Indian dances. In Indian dances is one of our 24 different techniques, and in this techniques we have two different modalities: classical Indian dances and Bollywood. Now, what we are going to see and learn with Kritika are all the main elements that are very important for that modality. What are the things that you should keep in mind, those important things that we cannot go without when we are seeing and expecting these dances, and all that information that is going to give you in light and give you all the little details that will be important. So without further ado, I leave you guys with Kritika.
So I'm going to start speaking about the Indian dances. We have three categories, we can say. Our dance styles are classical dances, Bollywood, and we have some traditional dances as well that come in the ethnic modality, of course. So today we're going to speak more in details about classical dances and Bollywood that are more popular all around the world. So let's begin with the classical dances. As of today, we have 9 classical dances that are considered classical dances. Earlier, we used to have 6 only, but now we have added 3 more dance styles that have been given accreditation as classical dances. And the names of these dance styles are Bharatnatyam, Kathak, Odissi, Kathakali, Manipuri, Mohiniyatam, Kuchipudi, Satria dance, and Chao. So let's start talking about each dance style. So as you know that these are classical dance styles, so they have a proper format, proper technique, proper repertoire. Each dance style has its own way since its origin. So I wouldn't be able to talk about the whole technique. It's like ballet, you have to go through all the technique. But I will give you the overview of each dance style, like what is required, what we are looking for in each dance performance. So let's start with Bharatnatyam. So Bharatnatyam is the oldest classical dance form from India. It's known to be around 2000 years old, and it comes from the South Indian region from Tamil Nadu in India. And it is based on the Carnatic music of South India. All the songs, all the music, the structure is all based on Carnatic system of music. This dance form, it was originally performed only by the female temple dancers as a devotional dance, like other classical dances of India. And it is based on the principles and the performance of our scripture. We have a literature of dance. It's called Bharatnatyam. So it's based on the principles of that book. And it has a rich repertoire of songs, and mostly in the South Indian languages like Telugu, Tamil, and Sanskrit. And in the dance technique of these dance styles, we use a lot of mudras. Mudras are the hand gestures that we use in most of our classical dances. And as of now, we know more around 200 hand gestures. The hand gestures can be done with one hand or two hands, depends on what kind of performance you are giving. In Bharatnatyam, the hand mudras, the postures, the forms of movements are more rigid, and they have specific structures. And the technique involves like the bending of knees in a plie position with open turnout knee, and it also has some parallel movements as well. But the main aspect of this dance is the mudras coordinated with the feet movement, of course. And we use ghungroos, which is the bells that we use in our feet to create the rhythm that matches the music part of any song that is used in our classical dance. So these are the main aspects. The ghungru, the rhythm that we produce with our feet, it needs to be really strong and really powerful. The hand gestures are very precise and clean. The neck movements are also very important in this style. The neck and the eyes, the hand gestures, and the foot movement. And the expressions and the facial expressions should depict the character that is being performed, like what kind of god you're characterized as. For example, if you're being Krishna, you need to add some mudras for Krishna. If you're doing Shiva, you need to add some mudras of Shiva, and as well as change the facial expressions according to the character. So these are the the basic elements and important elements that we look for in Bharatnatyam dance. And as you can see in the picture, the costume for Bharatnatyam dance, we have specific costumes for each classical dance. As you can see in the picture, these are the reference pictures for Bharatnatyam dances. Now moving on to Kathak. Kathak comes from the word katha, that means story. So the basic principle of this dance style was to tell a story. And this dance style comes from the northern part of India, mainly in Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh. And it has the connection with the narration of the storytellers. So earlier in ancient times, the storytellers used to, mostly as priests, they used to travel from village to village telling stories through their facial expressions, through some dance movement involved in it. And with time, the dance has evolved a lot, and there have been a lot of hand movements. In this dance style, the gestures, the hand movements are more soft and fluid as compared to Bharatnatyam. And they don't have a specific structure, they don't have specific rigid forms, they are more fluid and soft. And the footwork in this dance style is very important because the footwork is related to the song, the music part of Kathak, and it is based on the Hindustani music of Indian music system, which belongs to the north side of India, of course. And there are specific compositions that are used in the choreographic parts that are recited first by the dancer and then performed by the dancer by the footwork. So the footwork needs to be really, really precise, creating the sound of the each word you say in the music part. So it has to be really precise, and of course, with more technique, the precision comes with more technique. And in this dance style, the performances are based on our mythological scriptures, Ramayana and Mahabharata, and of course, it's a storytelling dance. So the performance is also based on the facial expressions, your eyes, what kind of character you are depicting. It's really important. And also, Kathak is more characterized by the turns that are called chakras. It's very important. And you have different types of chakras in Kathak. So, of course, it depends on your level, like what kind of chakras you can do. You can do with the 8 beat, you can do one chakra, you can do with 5, you can do with 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. So it depends on the technical level, but the chakras are really important element in this dance style. And of course, in the Bharatnatyam and Kathak, the sound of the bells, ghungroos, is very important and specific to the music. So that is also important. And as you can see in the picture, in the image, we have some Kathak dancers, costumes. It's very different as compared to what we saw in Bharatnatyam. It's more fluid skirt, like you can see, it has to be a fluidity in the skirt, showing your legs to see the footwork. And now next we go on to Odissi dance. Odissi dance has its origin from the region Odisha in eastern India. And this dance also in ancient times was performed as a part of temple service by the female temple servants. And we can even see even now in some temples, you have some cravings of these dancers in the temples, in the outside part of the temples. The repertoire songs of these dance styles are based on specifically on the love stories of divine Krishna and Radha, and they are interpreted by the dancer by using the hand gestures, like we talk about the mudras and hastas. They are also used in this dance style. And in this dance style, we also have a codified footwork of Padabheda, gaits, walks termed the walk. We have specific walks in this style. It's called chalis, and the spins in this dance style are called brahmaris. Like in Kathak, they are called chakras. In Odissi, they are called brahmaris. They are some technical competence of Odissi dance. Also, in this dance style, the movements are very soft, graceful, and very sculpture based. So the movements are not very rigid or very too much fluidity, but it's very graceful, and you follow some postures that have been there since the ancient time. And in this style also we have the footwork that needs to be precise, of course, making the sound of the bells, the ghungroos, but it's not as specific as Kathak, where Kathak is completely based on the footwork of a dancer. And you can see the costume for this dance style. and the headdress, how it is different from the Bharatnatyam. And as you can see, you must have noticed that our makeup needs to be really big, especially the eyes part are always big because we are always presenting our dance by facial expressions, especially the eyes are very expressive part of our face. So they need to be really big. In all our classical dances, we have big eyes. Moving on to Kathakali. Kathakali means story play, and it originated in Kerala in South India. In this dance style, the dancer basically is telling a play, is doing a theatrical play, and most of the stories are from our epic scriptures, Ramayana and Mahabharata. In this style, the main character is the characterization of this dance style is the character, which one is the character you're representing, for which god you're representing. And the costume is the biggest feature of this dance style. And we have to paint our face. For example, we have green color to represent some heroic character or a king or a divine, or we use red and black for evil and fierce characters. As you can see, even in the pictures, the costumes are really painted, and they are big in size because it's mostly the play. Also, the performance part, the dancer doesn't speak or open their mouth. They are doing a mime act. So all the dance happens mostly in the face. So it's really important, the facial expression part in this dance style. Okay, now moving on to the next. Now it's called Mohiniyatam. Mohiniyatam also comes from South India, Kerala, and it is based on the mythological character Mohini, who was known as an enchantress. And since she was an enchantress, the movements are very graceful, very feminine, and it also has connection with the Kerala's temples, and it is characterized by not so heavy steps and not so much of rhythmic tension like other dances have a lot of footwork, but in this style is mostly feminine and most graceful. The footwork is there, but it's very gentle, very soft, and very sliding. And even the dancer body moves in a very graceful way. Even when you go on the floor or you come up from the floor, it has to be very fluid and very soft and gentle. So this is the main difference that creates the difference in this dance style as compared to other ones, that it has to be very feminine because you need to act like an enchantress, of course. And you can see the costume, that there is a bun on the side, as you can see in the images, and the makeup and the hairstyle and everything you can see here. They also use the bells in this. Okay, next one. Kuchipudi. Kuchipudi comes from the region of Andhra Pradesh from India, and it is also a product of Bhakti movement, that means the devotional movement, and it combines your speech, your mime part, and your dance part all together in the dance. And the main characteristic of this dance style is that the dancer performs multiple personalities on the stage at one time. So when you are doing multiple personalities, you need to be able to change your character within seconds. And there is a lot of dynamics in the movements, even in the expressions, because if you are going from a very fierce character, then going to a very soft character, so you need to change the movements, the body language, the hand gestures, your expressions. So this is one main character of this dance style. And the drama part expression part is also very important in this dance style. You can see the picture here, the makeup, the hairstyle, and the costume. Okay, going into next, which is Manipuri dance. Manipuri dance, as the name suggests, it comes from the Manipur region in northeast India. It is also a devotional dance, and it's based on the love of Radha and Krishna, our gods from mythology. And this dance style is also it has a lot of theater art as well. And even now in some temples, it's performed as devotional dances. This dance style is not very dynamic or very rigorous. It's very introverted, and the dancer keeps the eyes down, and it's hardly any time that there is an eye contact with the public, and it's very introvert, like I said before. The dance movements in this style are very circular and continuous, so they're all flowing into one movement to another. And the facial expressions are not so strong as compared to Bharatnatyam or Kuchipudi. They are very soft facial expressions. Even the footwork in this dance style is very controlled and very soft, almost without making sound. Because in northeast part of India, the dances, they believe they should not hurt the Mother Earth. So it's like a part of tradition as well, especially in the northeast, people follow this culture a lot, and hence in Manipuri dance, we don't have a lot of footwork. And you can see the costume here. The girl is dressed up with this cylindrical skirt on the bottom. She's playing the part of Radha, and the other boy is the Krishna, as you can see. Okay, moving on to the next one, Satria dance. Satria dance, like other dances, is also a devotional dance, and it developed in the monasteries of Assam. And this dance style has been passed on from generation to generation in the family of monks. In the beginning, the dance style was only performed by the male dancers, but now some females have also started learning in the family, and they are also developing in other parts of the world as well. It has also an evolved language of hand gestures, hastas, footwork, and the movement and the expression as well. And the repertoire is centered on to Lord Krishna, mainly in this dance style. Also, the main difference that makes it special dance, that it has some bouncy movements in the technique. Like other dance styles, we don't have a lot of bounce. In this dance, it's a little bit bouncy. Why it's bouncy? To again keep your movements, feet movements light on the ground, because it also comes from Assam. And they respect Mother Earth a lot, and they don't want to hurt the Mother Earth, so they try to keep it very soft movements and keep it very bouncy and very soft landing. And the hand movements are sometimes soft and sometimes fluid, and sometimes some stiff movements, but mostly fluid. Even the torso has some fluidity in the movements. And you can see here in the pictures what kind of costumes they wear. These are the traditional costumes from this dance style. And moving on to the next one, the ninth classical dance, Chao. Chao comes from the eastern part of India, Orissa, West Bengal. And Chao, it's one dance that is different from others because it's based on the martial arts and the martial rituals and the temple rituals from ancient times. We have in this dance style, the dancer performs the epic scenes from our scriptures, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Purans, and some other traditional folklore legends. As this is a martial arts dance form, it needs to have strong structures. The body language needs to be really strong, like of a warrior, and it needs to be really have strong movements. You cannot have fluid hands, or you cannot. We don't have a lot of footwork in this. We don't wear ghungroos in this, for example. And the postures are really the strongest element in this dance style. We also have jumps in this dance style, like uh, other dances. We don't have so much of jumps, but in this, there are martial arts jumps and also some floor work. So all these movements need to be really precise and clean. And you can see some pictures here. We have different styles of Chao. Like you can see, we have Mayurbhanj Chao, where dancers are not dressed up as characters. And then we have other style where the dancers are dressed up as complete characters. So these both styles are famous in India. So this finishes our section of classical dances. Like we have 9 classical dances, and of course, if it's not easy to explain the detailed part of each dance style because it takes a lot of years. And of course, if you want to practice any dance style, it takes a lot of years to improve your skills. It's like ballet, you take years and years and years. So our dances are also exactly same. You need to give a lot of time to each dance style to gain the expertise in any style. Now, I will go on to Bollywood, which is the most popular style, famous in all the world. So Bollywood, initially it's not considered as dance style because it's a movie industry of India in Hindi language. Be really sure because we also have Tollywood and Mollywood and Collywood. So Bollywood is the one that is in Hindi language. This industry started in 1930. And in the beginning, we used to have songs and we used to have some dance part in the movies that were more theatrical. And with time, we started to have more dances. In the beginning, we used more classical dances and traditional dances like Bharatnatyam and Kathak. And since then, it has evolved a lot. And not just the dance, the music evolved a lot, and hence the dances evolved as well. And just because of that, because we mix a lot of music styles in Bollywood, we also have the possibility of having different dance styles. Like in the current world, we use some Spanish, some funk, some hip hop. So it depends on what kind of music we are using. We create the dance movements according to that. So the Bollywood industry has always been changing a lot with time. Depends on the demand of the popularity of what kind of musics are popular in the current world. So, but mainly in the beginning, the influence was more on from Kathak, Bharatnatyam, and the traditional dances. We still follow these styles, but nowadays it's becoming more street styles as well, more hip hop, more African dances, Spanish dances. So it's a fusion. And that's what makes it more colorful as well, because we have the freedom to mix the styles. We can do a fusion. For example, we have a song and mixed with the Arabic music, so we can put belly dance and some Bollywood movements, you know. But the important feature of Bollywood dance should be the expression part, how you are expressing, how you are being the character of the song. If there is a funny song, you need to have some funny moments in the song. If it is a more sensual one, you need to be more sensuous. So it depends what kind of song you're using, and hence the movement should be there. And of course, the technique is also judged according to that. If you're using a classical fusion with Bollywood, we have to see some classical movements, elements, but clean classical movements. So that is about Bollywood. And apart from that, we have some folk dances that are world famous that we put in the modality of ethnic dances. We have the most famous ones are from Rajasthan, Ghumar, Kalbelia. Then we have from Gujarat, we have Garba, Dandiya. We have from Punjab, Bhangra, Gita. We have from Maharashtra, Lavani dance. And all these dances have some specific movements from each culture that represents the true flavors of the traditional culture from the area. So make sure you use the movements that are associated with that dance style, and the music needs to be purely traditional, and the costumes, the makeup, everything needs to belongs to the area that it belongs to. So I think I will pass it on to Sandra now.
Okay, well, a lot of details go into these dances. Well,
Yeah.
nothing less is expected when a dance is representing a culture and a whole view. So very, very small details that are very important. So thank you for sharing. Considering this in Bollywood, also since as Kritika was sharing with us, it's part of an industry. We have movies where they have choreography. So here, well, some of these choreographies have elements that we can see that you will bring to the Bollywood creations, as long as you do not surpass 45% of these pieces. Well, it will be considered plagiarism. So, well, that gives us elements where you can take from the original, stay maybe a little bit in the original elements that you would see in Bollywood, but always we recommend to bring it your originality and bring it to your own, so it's more creative. So that being like a side note. Now, we see all the elements, and Kritika shared all the elements that should be present and that are part of each one of these dances, the 9 classical dances and Bollywood, and the elements that should be there. Now, one thing that when we are starting to create our choreographies, we have to think about what we are doing with them. Now, we're also thinking who we're creating them for. So there is where the dancers come into mind. Oh, the Bollywood costumes I didn't show here, but yeah. In this, well, I don't know if something you would like to add that maybe you didn't say because I didn't pass the slide. Sorry, my bad.
No, that's all right. About the costumes for Bollywood, since it's a fusion of different dance styles, we also have the freedom to use the costume according to the music, according to the song. But of course, adding some flavor of Indian culture, like some Indian accessories to make it look more Indian. Like if you're doing a hip hop dance, we should not use completely hip hop. We can add like a bindi, mantika, some earrings, something to make it look like Indian. So that's all about Bollywood costumes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, now moving on to the dancers that are going to be wearing these costumes and that we will be creating the choreography for. Well, it's very important to note that we will be dividing the competitive levels in, well, levels, and of course, according to ages, those are the divisions, which we spoke about in detail. A lot of these elements we spoke in detail about the general elements of our organic code in our first workshop that you can find online on YouTube in our official channel, All Dance International Official, where you can see all the details, because today we're going to be speaking about those details pertaining Indian dances specifically. Okay, so any other doubts, don't hesitate to go back or visit our organic code online. Now, moving on, we have 4 different levels, basic levels that will be divided, and a few more levels that will be combinations in a total of 7 levels. These levels are designed in order to make the competition a positive competitive environment for dancers, where all dancers have equal, well, of course, competing opportunities. And for this, we have divided them not only by age, but also by level. Now, these levels are not designed by the experience they've had or on stage or how many years they have been training, because that's not something we can actually see in the choreography. What we can see are the technical elements that they are executing and the level that we see in their performances. So for this, we have designed these levels. We have our new all dancers that are beginners overall in dance, not just in Indian dances, but are just learning to control their body, their their musical ear, their spatial awareness, and of course, the more difficult elements in coordination and dance. So on the technical level, we are going to be expecting and should be including simple technical elements. If they are learning turns, because that's not, well, normally the first thing we learn when we dance, but if they are starting to learn turns, they should be simple turns, not doubles, not triples, but simple turns. If they're doing elements as jumps, they shouldn't be difficult jumps who have, let's say, an extension of, for example, 180 degrees on both legs, and shouldn't be very complex. If they're doing acrobatic elements, for example, when they're including them in Bollywood, they should be simple acrobatic elements with both hands still on the floor or the whole body supporting on the floor. So those are the elements that will be part of New All Dancers and in the technical aspect. Now, when the dancers start improving and are, let's say, maybe exploring more difficult elements, maybe double turns, more complex jumps, or more complex acrobatic elements, well, then they will be entering and be considered student level dancers, where we do not have any restriction on the technical elements they can include. They can be from simple to very complex, and here will depend on the specific level of each dancer, the elements they can or will be included in the choreography. When we continue our work and we continue our technical difficulty, well, we'll be moving on to pre-professional or professional level dancers. That will be, of course, a high technical elements, a high difficulty in the choreographies, but specifically also depending on where the dancer is at in their progress. For example, when we are already growing in dance and we start taking dance more seriously, well, dancers can be part of dance companies, or be student teachers, be assistants, or even be choreographers or teachers themselves. So when we're starting to share all that knowledge we've been building through the years, well, then we will be considering the dancers pre-professional or professional. So if you are already a choreographer or teacher, or your student is, and they are 15 years up to 17 years, are not yet 18, they will be considered pre-professional dancers. If you are teachers, choreographers, workshop artists, or part of a professional dance company and are over 18 years old, then you will be considered a professional dancer. Any high-level competitor or student that wishes to compete against pre-professional professionals, because you consider you have the level required for that, even if you are not a teacher, you may do so. You cannot go back to student afterwards, but you can always put yourself against the best and always strive to do better. So if you do have the level, even if you're not a teacher, not a choreographer, you can. But if you are a teacher or choreographer, you must. That is one of the specific differences there. And we have our combined levels. So in some choreographies, we can see new all dancers and students dancing together. So we'll have the student open. If pre-professionals and professionals are dancing together, we'll have the open pro. And we have our open level division that is open, all levels, all ages, open production, large groups. So this is for the large productions that include various ages, all age ranges, that include different divisions from student open or open pro, where we can see some pre-professionals with new all dancers, or with students, with professionals. You can mix any way you want without restriction, and that will be our open level in All Dance International. Now, of course, depending on the level of the dancers will be the expectation of the judges, the difficulty of the choreographies, the position of the choreographies, and maybe some dances will be more precise for some of the levels. And regarding this, well, the modality which you're dancing will be an element also required. So not the same expectations will the judges have for a new all dancer that they will prefer for a professional dancer. In this aspect, Kritika, in the Indian dances specifically, are there any little details or tips you can give the choreographers in choosing the level or the choreography specific for the level of the dancers and the expectations you'll have when you are seeing these choreographies?
Well, when I was explaining the classical dances specifically, that we have technique related with every dance style. So, of course, it depends what level. We also have levels for each dance style. So it depends which level you are in at your classical dance style. For example, the basic level would go into a new all dancer when you know just the basics of the hand gestures, the basic footwork of these classical dances that goes in the new all dancers. In the professional level, for example, we are looking for more technique. We are looking for more precision, specifically in your hand gestures, your footwork, your turns, your interpretation capability, your reach, your your ability to represent the character you're doing. So these are the different areas that the levels will be different. And of course, each dance style has various elements that can be different for each level, for a new all dancer or a student's level or a professional level. And in Bollywood, like it's a fusion. And of course, we see the overall complexity of the dance movements, how they are being chosen, because it's a complete fusion. So we have to see the overall choreography, how it has been created, what kind of movements have been put in the choreographic creation. So these are the main elements that we can see in the levels.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So as you can see, for new all dancers, they're not expecting complex movements, so don't include so difficult elements that one, they can't execute, or two, that they may be considered student, that are elements that would be included in student. So always keep these little details in mind, so they have a good performance, and also do not have any deduction for these details that we'll be seeing a little bit later on. Now, when they are competing, of course, we're going to have judges in the process, and we're going to see the scoring method. We have 3 judges responsible of giving the total scores, that they will be divided in 3 judges. One will be the medality judge, that can award a maximum of 70 points for the 100 points maximum possible in All Dance International, and that will additionally be giving a feedback to each one of the performances to help in this process of course, advancing and progressing. We have the complimentary judge that can give the additional 30 points of the 100 points maximum possible. And we have a third judge that will be doing some deductions pertinent to the specific choreographies, depending in general, and some that are specific to the modality, which are the ones that we are going to be seeing today. Now, when they are scoring, we're going to see that every criteria that the judge is going to be scoring, it does not have the same maximum points possible. So some will be 10 points, some will be 5, 2 points, 2.5, 1.5. So depending on this, what the judges will be and what you will be seeing is a range that will be applying. So we have, let's say, an average score according to what is the expectations for this specific criteria in the level specifically of the dancers and the modality. We can always go and surpass the expectations that are based and go above average, where we have those almost perfect scores in a criteria. And in some criterias, we may be exceeding expectations and be above average, and in some we may still be below average. That means we still have to work on some details to get to the average point and eventually surpass and exceed these the expectations, clear my tongue, and go above average in some of these criteria. So very important to keep this in mind, and when we get our feedback and we get our scores back, that will help us see where we are doing very good, where we can still keep working on, and that will also be part of what helps us improve in our next competitive experience, and where we can still strive to work on. Now, let's see the specific criteria that will be, let's say, scored and looked for in each one of the judges. So let's start with the modality judge. The criteria that will be evaluated and scored for the modality judge will be: 1, the specific technique, that will be divided in correct modality and technical level. Now, correct modality will obviously include all those details that Kritika shared with us earlier that should be part of the style we choose. So if we're dancing classical dances, all those little elements that are important for the modality should be there, and the same for Bollywood. Now, when the correct modality is there, perfect, easy, if you applied all these little elements and details that Kritika gave us, I'm sure there's not going to be any problem there. Now, on the technical level will be, of course, what we spoke about a little bit earlier, the level of the dancers, the expectation of the technical level, and the execution according to the level, and of course the ages. So that is going to be reflected here. We have the execution criteria that will be synchronization and skill. Now, the synchronization for dancers, for two or more dancers, of course, will be the synchronization between them, the preciseness in them. They can be completely at the same time synchronized or asynchronic, that maybe they're dancing in canon, or not the precise time together, but the precise time in music. So that position should be clear. It should be very obvious if they're dancing at the same time or not, and it should be precise with the music as well. And in skills, we are going to be talking about the ability of the dancers in their technical level to execute the elements in the choreography. So the precision, the cleanness of the execution, and the preciseness. So that should be clear, the energy, the lines, or all the little details in each one of the styles that we also saw in the description. Well, those will be, of course, expected in the execution of the movements. And also we have the difficulty. Now, in difficulty, we have extraordinary movements and elements of risk. When we hear this word, normally our brain goes to acrobatic elements, to those elements that are more, acrobatic and are considered, let's say, risk. But that's not the only way of including risk in our choreographies, especially for the modalities where we not only don't expect acrobatics, but acrobatics are not part of the technique. So we have to see what the elements of risk or extraordinary movements are in the technique per se. So we do not have to go and take resource from something else and leave the nature of the dances. The idea is to use the elements in the technique of the dances to put those elements of risk, those extraordinary movements that are particular to the dance style. In Bollywood, that we do use acrobatic elements, or can use, not do, but can use, well, if you use them, they will be considered, but there are also other elements that will be considered. And the elements we bring in should also have, well, a good execution, but because they will be, of course, scored in the skills, in the technical level, and everything as well, the execution. So here, see what elements can be included for your dancers, that they have the level to execute, and of course, that will give it that little plus. So here, Kritika, is there anything you would like to add, maybe guide them, and some of the elements that can be considered or used in these that will help in their choreographic composition?
Yes. Well, in terms of execution, the skills, of course, it's the precision of your hand gestures, your mudras, and the footwork that needs to be really precise in terms of execution. And in terms of difficulty, the extraordinary movements are different in different classical dances. So, for example, in Kathak, you have the chakkars, the turns. They can be really fast and really dynamic. So that can be a really extraordinary movement factor. Or in Bharatnatyam, for example, if you do some kind of movement but with a high velocity, with the high velocity footwork, that adds to the extraordinary movement as well. We also have some flexibility movements in the Bharatnatyam, some dips on the floor. So all these elements can add to the complexity of the choreography. And same we have in different dance styles, in different techniques, we have different movements that can be considered as the extraordinary movements. In some dance styles where you don't have a lot of footwork, a lot of dynamics in the hands or the foot, but then you can use the expression, the facial part, like how fast you can change your character what is the dynamic. So all these features can add to the difficulty of the choreography.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So as you can see, it doesn't have to go all the way to stand on your head, do triple turns and land maybe, I don't know, on your big toe, but actually in each one there are going to be details, and specifically as you can see in Indian dances, small details, even the expressions can go a long way in specifically some of the styles. So that is very important to keep in mind. So you don't have to do elements that are not proper of the modality. So for example, in classical, do not include acrobatic elements, because instead of adding, it will be a negative impact in your choreography. Now, the other criteria that the modality judge is going to be looking for and scoring is, for example, the musicality. In the musicality, we have the musical interpretation and the music. Now, the musical interpretation, as we heard, and as Kritika shared, is a very important part of these dances. So that will be taken into account and be very important here. The musical election as well, because we can't just use any music for the classical dances or even for the Bollywood. We have a selection of music, and they have, as she shared, a repertoire of musics that are part of this. So it's very important to keep in mind and not just use any music with the movements, but the correct music as well. And when we do edit the music for any reason to make it shorter, or maybe, I don't know, do a mix, well, it should be well executed and it will also be here considered. We have also the choreography, in which we are going to be looking for, one, the costume, and two, the complexity. Now, the costume will be according to the modality. So here, if you're doing a classical dance, well, we're going to be looking for the correct costume in that classical dance that we saw, that we even shared in different images that will help guide you. So of course, one will be according to the specific style you choose. And in Bollywood, we have, as we saw, of more various elements that we can use and be more creative, but it should still have that flashy style, also have that Indian, let's say, essence that we can always see in these costumes, but it's very important. And the complexity, we're talking about the complexity of the choreography as a whole, not just the steps including in the choreography, but the dynamics created, the different formations, the use of the space that we're also going to see later on. But here, the overall, the complexity of the choreography, where it's not the same complexity of a choreography that always uses the music in the same speed, but we also use different dynamics, or we use different formations depending on the choreography and the style. But yeah, we can add complexity here for the dancers in not only the steps, but the composition of the choreography. The creativity is also going to be very important, and how we apply all those little details, all this little important things of the expression, the mudras, the feet, all of these elements that are part of the technique and but how we are going to apply them in our own way, how we are going to tell that story. And of course, that will add to the entertainment, to show something different, that the dancers connect with the audience, that the audience can understand what these dancers are also sharing with us. And of course, if they enjoy the performance, it's going to be more likely that we enjoy the performance with them. So that will also add to the entertainment of the choreography. Here, I don't know if there's something else you would like to add. I know these details, and a lot of these details are very important in these modalities. You also shared a lot of also the details, but if there's anything you wish to add.
Yes, I would like to add here about the music. Like in classical dances, we have a specific repertoire of music that should be used in this modality. And in Bollywood, because people often get confused with the classical Bollywood songs or traditional Bollywood songs with the pure classical ones. And they often ask me as well, oh, if this dance is classical or not. I said no, because it's the choice of song. If you're choosing a song from a Bollywood industry, but it's classical, then it's considered as Bollywood. The pure classical dance has to be purely classical in terms of the choreography, the costumes, even the music, because it's the most important part of the division. So that is really important to understand which song you're using and if you're putting it in the right category or not. And about the costumes, we have already shared the specific costumes with each division. So that is there. And yeah, that's it about this. Thank you.
Perfect. Very, very important to keep in mind because those are small details that are not so small, that go a long way. So keep that in mind. Now, these are the elements and the criteria that the modality judge will be looking for. Now, speaking of what he's looking for, and remember we're talking about creativity, we also spoke a little bit about it earlier. It's very important to keep the intellectual property of the choreographies that have already been created responsible about that, because as choreographers we should respect the work of our colleagues and we want our work to be respected as well. So use the work that and the choreographies that have been created as inspiration to create your own and make those elements your own, but let's not go and copy exactly the choreography that others have created. So use that as different elements that you can take into your choreography, see what they are, the effect they're creating, why you enjoy them, and what makes them particularly special, and use those elements to make it your own and include them in your choreography. So always be original, be creative, and not copy the work of others. That will help you in your creative process and also avoid any possible deduction that can be applied to your choreography. So just a little side note there. Now, the complementary judge is our second judge that is going to be seeing other criterias that go in hand with the previous ones, but are going to be seen from another point of view. Now, the stage use, we're going to be talking about the space, formations, levels, and transitions. Now, the space use is how we use the space regarding 1, 2, 3, 5, or even 40 dancers on stage. It's not if we fill this space, because 40 dancers will inevitably fill the space. I think it's harder if we try to not fill it, but how we fill it through the movement and through the use of the space is what is going to be looked for here. Now, the formations is going to be an important part of a choreography because it will help us also enhance maybe an aspect that we want, give us certain intention to the movements, and help add to the storyline that we are creating. So use different formations, check which formations can add to that intention you have. If it's a circle, maybe a line, diagonals, triangles, even squares, different formations, combinations of these formations. So that will give it also different dynamics. And when we are playing with these formations, we can also play with the levels in the formations that will add another aspect. And in general, the levels in the dance can give it also different dynamics. As we already heard, some of the dances use a lot of these levels and should be present. Some of them maybe do not use so many levels. So don't try to go out of the technique and use levels just because they're going to be scored. Because if a dance doesn't use the low level, it's not going to be expected. If it does, well, it's going to be expected. So don't go out of the nature of the dance. But in Bollywood, for example, that there's not a specific nature, then we are going to be expecting the use of all the levels. In transitions, well, it's going to be basically how we go from point A to point B, how we go from our line to our square to our diagonal, how we are going to go from our high level to our low level. Are we doing it walking, dancing, according to what are we moving, and what clarity we're giving to the transitions and how we're going to move through the space and through the different elements in our choreography. In image, we're going to be looking for creativity, accessories, makeup, and visual aesthetics. Well, in this part, I think we have a lot of elements that we already saw, specifically when we saw the different the costumes that will be part, and that is part of the image. So when we see the dancer on stage, those are the elements that should be seen, depending on the different characteristics of that dance we are going to be interpreting. So how we use them in our advantage will be, of course, the creativity. So some accessories are a must in some of the styles. and so they will be expected and of course correctly used. The makeup is also a very important part, especially in these expressions. As you could see in the images, they all have a specific makeup, and all those little details will add. And of course, that will come together and form the visual aesthetic that is proper to this style and proper to these dances. It's not the same visual aesthetic that we'll see in an Odissi than a Kathak, and it's also very different than the visual aesthetics we'll have in ballet. So here are the visual aesthetics specific for those dances, for those styles. And for example, in Bollywood, we have various elements we can use, but always remember the visual aesthetics that give it that Indian style and that Indian essence in the choreographies and the image. So anything else you would like to add other than all the things you already shared in each one of the details, Kritika?
No, I think we have already spoken about everything and you explained again. So I think we are good.
Okay, perfect. Now, the other elements that the complementary judge will be looking for is performance projection. Now, in performance projection, we have 4 different details that are going to be looked at, let's say separately, but they come together. The gestuality, authenticity of character, force of movement, and interpretation. Now, this is as you can see, in every dance, it's important because we also always want to project something with our movement. We always want to tell a story. We want to show the interpretation. But here, as you can see, it's part of the essence of the dances. It's not just something that's going to add, but something that is required in order to keep the nature. So we already saw a lot of the gestuality that is expected depending on the style of dance. And we're not just expecting any gestuality, we're expecting the gestuality regarding that style of dance, the story and the nature. The authenticity of character is very important when we're interpreting a specific character, but also when we're representing a specific energy, a specific, let's say, if it's happy, if it's sad, if it's more of a flirty essence. So that will be the authenticity of character, but very especially through the dance, okay? So it's very important that we do that character through the dance that you are interpreting, not just any way of interpreting the character, but through the technique. The force of movement, we already saw that and Kritika shared the precise movement, if it's soft, if it's fluid, if it's very sharp, if it should be sliding, that some of the dances we saw. So that will be here in the force of movement. What the forces is applied if we are going to take care of Mother Earth, as the culture implies. So all those little details always take into mind because it's going to be part of the modality, but as you see, it's also going to be scored here. And the interpretation, well, all of these elements come together to add to that interpretation where we see the facial expressions. Here, the mudras as well is part of what they're going to be interpreting and part of the gestures, not only the facial expressions, but those gestures are also part of the language that is going to be used. So all these things are important. We already saw in each one, it's not the same, but in each one, it's very important. And the public response is where you can come in to add to the scores of the dancers, where the complimentary judge, let's say, shifts a little. And now the complimentary judge is all the audience, is all that support from the audience. That is an important part as an artist to be sharing all of this with the public, and the support of the public is important for this process as well. So the support can be through the audience being there and feeling the applause and feeling that energy. When we're in live through Zoom, the chats, the being connected and sharing with them in social media, well, doing shares and likes and all that support is important for the dancers. So this is the way where you can have a voice in that support and also add and contribute not only in the emotional aspect of the dancers, but also in the scores. So here is where you guys have a vote in the scores. So here, I don't know if you wish to share anything else about this performance projection that you think maybe add or that we haven't already seen.
No, I think you have explained it very well. Yes, this is very important to see the difference of classical dances movements like if it's too much force required in the movement or less forced. For example, there is a dance style which requires less and you're giving it two extra more force to the movement, so that we should know and understand, okay, if it's required or not required. So it's not every time giving too much, sometimes it's less in Indian dances. So that is very important to have an awareness about.
Yes, okay, perfect, very much. So yes, the quality of the movement is going to be there in a lot of aspects, and always keep all these little details in mind. Now, these are the details and the let's say the criteria that can add points to our performance and that we want to include and that we want to always have present. Now, there are some criteria that we want to, on the contrary, avoid, so we can avoid any possible deduction. The deductions are there to keep what we we look for and we strive in All Dance International Organic Code is to make the competitive environment a positive and competitive environment that will help the dancers improve and grow, and not be an experience where they actually feel frustrated. And what we do for this is do all the divisions, the levels we spoke of, but also the deduction is to ensure that everybody is applying this and that everybody has an equal, of course, elements on stage, and that we are fair to all the dancers and respectful to all the dancers. So the idea here is as you can see, and you'll see, most of the deductions we can avoid forehand, knowing them, and some that we can't avoid because are part of what happens on stage by the dancers. Well, the idea is to keep them at a minimum and rehearse so they don't happen. You're going to see that the higher points deduction that you can see to the right are, the higher ones can be avoided, and normally are responsibility of choreographers, directors, and you, knowing them, can avoid them. And the ones that we can't avoid maybe and are lower because they're the ones that will be done performance wise and that may happen on stage and is part of the experience growth as dancers. Now, most of them apply equally to all of the modalities, and we went through them in our first creative workshop. So if you need a more detail, you can go to our first workshop that's online on our YouTube channel. Remember, subscribe, like, comment if you enjoyed it and if you found it useful. And if you have any questions, also remember our comment section, that we'll be glad to get back to you and will give light on all these aspects. Now, the wrong modality is going to be an important part here in, of course, Indian dances, because wrong modality is when effectively we registered our choreography in the incorrect modality, because it should be dancing in another modality, because maybe it doesn't have the correct technical elements, the music. So remember all the details that are important that we already shared. If they are not present and they may be taken into another modality, that will affect here, and you can see it's a high deduction. So keep in mind when you design your choreographies to have all these elements that Kritika shared with us, so you don't have any restriction or problems here. The let's say wrong division is the election of the levels, the age groups. That applies to all the modalities, and we can see in detail in our organic code. A wrong level, we went through the wrong levels, so remember the elements required for each level. Specifically, do not go over the level that you are registering, so design your choreography for the correct level. And don't think we need to put double, triple turns for every dancer to get to a high score, because in some ways it can affect, because for new all dancers that will not just not be expected, but will be penalized because it will be considered a student level dancer. So important thing to keep in mind. Late arrival to stage applies to everybody alike. Be there on time, with time, 2 hours in advance so you can be ready. False routine start. If the choreography starts until the end, do not restart by any reason. Forbidden elements, not any use of fire, water, dust, any liquid that can affect the stage or the dancer in any way. Important to keep in mind. Excessive use of acrobatic or gymnastic elements. In Bollywood, maximum 3. In classical dances, do not include them. Makeup, body paint, appropriate, obscene, or offensive clothing. Use the correct clothing for the modality. We do not expect to see a ballet tutu in a classical dance. We do not expect to see an Odissi costume in a Kathak dance. So that will be, of course, the incorrect or inappropriate costume for that dance specifically, okay? Poorly executed elements. The technique inside the choreography should be correctly executed. If we take elements from another technique, for example, in Bollywood that has a lot of fusion, if we are taking an element from another technical dance, well, execute it correctly. If we're taking them from classical dances, with the correct execution of the technique. If they're from traditional dances as well. So be very respectful of the techniques we're using in our choreographies and correctly execute them. The lines of the feet should be clear. If the use of the head, when we're turning, where the spot is, if it has a spot, the toes, if they should be pointed, if they should be inflexed, if they do not have so much of a precise position but are not abandoned, because we have to be aware of our body. So all those little details can add, or in case of not having them clear, may rest, may need a subtract some points. Tripping or falling, any tripping, instability, maybe stumbles can have a deduction of 0.5. If we fall, it don't save the element and cannot execute it completely, it'll have 1 point deduction. Throwing elements, items to the public, do not use any element that you're using to take it off and throw it to the audience or off stage. If you want to create effect taking it off, it should remain on stage or to the sides, but don't throw it to the front. Inappropriate language or music. The music should be respectful to all cultures. No bad words, no cuss words, no irrespectful words that can be offensive. And inappropriate movement, no sexual content and not sexual implicit expressions in the movements. Here, specifically in Indian dances, the language or music used specifically in Bollywood and classical dances do not use specific language that can be required here as a deduction. So even a more important aspect to keep the music correct, because then you'll already know we don't have bad language, because it is already a culture that worries about this and uses correct language and nothing that can be irrespectful. So let's have a plus there. And of course the movements, regarding the technique in the classical dances, do not have any appropriate movements. But when we are including movements, especially in Bollywood, keep in mind that we do not include elements that can be very explicit sexually. Some may be sensual, maybe a little, let's say, cheerful, but should not go to the side of sexualizing the movements in dance. So here, I don't know if there's anything you wish to add that I may have forgotten, or that can add to these choreographers.
Yes, I would like to just add here in the usage of excessive acrobatic or gymnastic elements. In classical dances, there has been a recent edition of Chao dance, which is a martial arts dance, and it has a lot of elements of acrobats. So I think here we should allow the performer to have some moments of these elements.
Yes, here in this case, for example, in this styles of dance and also in ethnic dances, when these elements are part of the technique and part of the nature, well, it is always implied. But if not, well, don't add them because it's not part of the technique. But in this case, yes, very good addition to that, Kritika. So it's also known. Yes. Now, moving on, the other criteria that will be a possible deduction could be accidents or falling of clothing. So all the accessories used, all the elements used, will keep them, of course, well sewed to the costumes, or if they're headpieces, very well placed so they don't fall. If we're using any props, also rehearse with them so they don't fall and don't have an accident with these. Damaged or untidy clothing, no clothing ripped, they should be correctly worn. No underwear should be visible. Everything should be very tidy and according to the modality and in place. Choreography inappropriate to division. Keep your choreography age appropriate, self-explanatory there. Altisonance at the start or end of a routine. Not very common scene here, but this will be including elements included, for example, when some groups maybe add to the music or by themselves. It's like to say the name of the dance studio or the dance crew or any expression of euphoria that may alter the view of the choreography or incite the public or the audience to get more aroused. If we want to arouse the public, that's the idea, but through dance and through the choreography itself. Left elements on stage, very simple. Everything that goes on stage with us should leave stage with us. If we take it off for any reason, grab it and leave. If it falls, the same, look at your surroundings, grab the elements and leave with them. Nothing should be left on stage. Use of scenery, very important here and in every dance. We will not be expecting any use of elements that are just there to generate decor or to, let's say, try to create an ambience or some elements. That should be done through the costume, through the specific dance, through the movement, through the makeup, through the everything, your hairpiece, everything. So if we bring an element on stage, it's because it's going to be part of the choreography and considered a prop. If we bring something on stage, it should not only be 30% of the choreography at least, but also be brought on stage by the dancers. So let's say we're doing any dance and we want to bring, I don't know, a chair on stage, a table, an image of, I don't know, of one of the gods of, let's say, whatever image you want. It should be because it's going to be part of the choreography. We're going to be using that element in the choreography at least 30%. If we're just there for it to look pretty, to give that image that we're adoring one of the gods and we're doing one of the goddesses and we're doing the choreography, well, then that is going to be considered scenery. So do not include it, only if it's part of the choreographic composition. Cannot be more emphatic there because it's a deduction of 10 points. So if you don't need it, don't bring it on. Fans, public, or audience obstructing the judgment. Well, our audience should be, of course, educated for dance, support the dancers, of course, applaud. During the choreography, keep in mind not to be irrespectful. We should still be able to hear the music and appreciate the choreography as it was designed. So that's important to be having that. Getting off, dropping off, or jumping on stage. We should not jump off stage to the front, sides, or back. Get on and off through the correct, of course, the paths created for this in a safe manner. The routine time. The routine time, we have a choreographic time specific for each subdivision. If it's soloists, if it's duets, trios, small groups, large groups. For example, if we have a soloist, duet, or trio, we have a maximum time. No matter what modality you're dancing to, we have a 2-minute time limit. So keep inside this time limit. You can, your choreography can last under the 2 minutes, 150, 130, no problem. But if we go, every time we go 5 seconds above this time limit, we're going to have 3 points deducted. So please avoid going over the time limit. And I strongly recommend not going too far into the range and the limits there, because if we go, for example, our music is 2:04. We're going very, very close to the borderline, which means if a dancer takes even 1 second more time to get to their final, let's say, pose, then instead of being 2:04, it's going to be 2:05, and it will come into deduction. And it's only 1 second, you would say, but it's the difference between a no deduction and deduction. So try to keep it more in the 2 minutes, 2:01, tops 2:02 as a personal recommendation. Intellectual property, we already saw this one in the modality judge. It will just be reflected in the deduction sheet. Regulation infringement, any regulation infringement that can, of course, obstruct the correct execution of the competition, go against any of our rules, or, of course, any one of our competitors or any part of the organization will have a deduction. So be very respectful of the rules and of all the members of all dance in the competitions. And last but not least, increase in unreported dancers. Well, check on the inscription you did and the registration, and when we get our preliminary program, check that all the information is correct. The time you will be approximate dancing, how many dancers are registered should be according to the dancers on stage. So if we have 6 dancers registered, there should not be 7 dancers on stage, but 6. If you need to increase dancers, we'll do so through the correct channels, through email, through WhatsApp, and inform and do this in the correct time so you don't have a deduction for this element. So those, as you can see, the majority are applied to all modalities alike that are for the good execution of the competition and for a fair environment for everybody. And of course, the idea is for not to include them and to be careful of these elements so you do not come into any deduction for your performances. So I don't know if before we say goodbye and close, Kritika has anything additional she would like to add.
Well, we have discussed a lot about Indian dances, and of course, it's never enough because Indian culture is really vast, it's really huge. So I think we have explained each and every dance style quite very well. And now we just need to focus on the specifics of each dance style and keep in mind what we are going to present and the technique of each dance style. That is important. And also the costumes are very important for us. The expressions part are very important. The makeup part is very important. So all these elements are really important when you are seeing a performance of Indian style. So I think we have shared a lot of information, and I hope people will try to understand the differences in different styles.
Kritika? Sorry, thank you very much, Kritika. Yes, I think, well, this is going to be very helpful. And one of the main elements we also want is to improve our knowledge about these dances. And also we wish to see all your performances and maybe a little bit of curiosity in these styles. So you go and, of course, look at them, learn more about them, and even maybe tempted to start learning and to include these dances and these styles in your choreographies so this industry will grow. There are very beautiful dancers, have a lot of, as you see, culture in them, and that will always improve our knowledge and, of course, the abilities that we can have in the consciousness of our body. So those are very important details. Remember, all our workshops are on YouTube, on our official All Dance International official channel. Remember to subscribe, follow, and of course, comment. Any questions you have, also add them. I want to give a special thanks to All Dance for creating these spaces and allowing us to share this information with all of you. And of course, thank Kritika for sharing all of her knowledge with so much respect, so much love for all the dancers so we can all improve. And thank you very much for being part of this initiative here in All Dance International.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and thank you All Dance for having me here and doing this because it's really important for the dance information to flow from one person to another, from one culture to another. So it's a great initiative and it's a great platform, and I think we should have as many people possible watching these videos to get to know different cultures, different dance styles, and how they are different from each other within the culture. So it's really important, and I was really happy to be a part of doing this with you. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and I hope I shared enough about my culture, although it's huge. But thank you so much, Sandra.
Well, yes, actually, I think we all learned a lot. There's always so much more to learn, but at least this gives us, let's say, a sneak peek, and it gives us a lot of information that we need. And of course, if anybody wants to learn more, well, that is why we give all these things. This is to open our mind and our thirst for knowledge as well. So thank you very much for being here with us. All of you that are watching, thank you for sharing also. We have already done a lot of our workshops. We're all online. Tomorrow is our last workshop. We're going with commercial dances that Carlos Duque from Panama is going to be with us. So don't miss out our last workshop. So if you want to go back, watch any of them, see them again, details, well, very welcome. That's why we're going to have them online. So hope to see you guys very soon here in our workshops. And of course, with all these implements added to your choreography. So we wish to see all your performances and how they can improve with all this. So thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye, and bye-bye, Kritika. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.